Hi, my name is Lee. I'm a PhD student in the Center for Environmental Policy at Imperial College. Today we will look at extracting data from two different sources into a usable format for analysis. For my research, I'm interested in risks to consumers that come from international trade. These risks come in two general flavors: risks present in food products like peanuts and canned tuna, which are reported here via the notification to the RASIF, and risks on non-food products like toys and cosmetics, which are reported to the RAPEX system. If you go into the portals, you can see how the notifications look currently both in the RASIF and the RAPEX here. And we want to get to a point where we can make charts that look like this, showing how the hazards at the border have changed in aggregate over the past 5 years, for instance, because our data is in a format which is like this, which is useful for doing research. And so what we'll do is we'll go through how we get to this point. First, we'll look at the RASIF because I think it's easier in many ways. So we'll click on the portal database, and then what we're interested in is border rejections, but it could be a variety of different things. And there's a limit on how much you can download, so I put in a date restriction because I think it's the easiest way to keep track of your segments of download to make sure you get the whole set of data. So click results. Here we go, and then we can click to extract these into an Excel file. So here's our results in Excel. We'll want to note a few things. It's looking pretty good, but there's a few things we'll want to note that will become relevant later. So we see that our product categories are these merged header rows above different products. And then as we scroll down, we can see that sometimes there's 2 cells per observation here that have to do with either an item dispatched from multiple countries or from multiple destinations. And then as well, if we look at our subject here, we'll see the different hazards that are described in text form. So it's not completely useful because it's just a whole bunch of text and completely different depending on what the hazard was. And I think regardless of the database you're using, you're always going to run into that where there's sort of an interesting data point and it's described in a batch of text. So we'll want to save it as a CSV so we can read it into STATA or another sort of statistical package you may use. So we'll want comma delimited. So go ahead and save it. Opening up the CSV just to show you how it looks here. You can see our product categories become on their own rows. And when we had multiple countries responsible for the hazard item, it's on its own row as well. Right, now that we have our CSV, we can get that into STATA. So we pull that up, you can see it looks very similar. So the code here basically is going to go through and delete some of that garbage at the top. So we'll do that first. And then if you remember, there was 2 issues we need to handle. One was when the product was coming from multiple countries or went via another country. So I'm going to replace those and call them multiple. That's what the code's doing there. And then next we have our product categories, which were on their own line. And so we need to use code to get through and get those. So there's a command called carry forward, which you can use find it, carry forward to look for that. And what that's going to do is copy it towards every observation until it gets to a new one. The next thing we want to do is take our date category and take out the year and the month and make them separate variables. We can use regular expressions to do that. So here's the code here to do that. If you haven't used them before, the UCLA website has a lot of great STATA resources, and especially their page on regular expressions is really good. You can see that worked. We have our year and our month. Next, we can use regular expressions to divide out the hazard and the product from this combined block of text we have for each notification. It looks daunting at first, but there's only so many ways you can actually construct this grammatically. So there's problems in products, there's problems of products, and there's problems with products from somewhere. And so we can use that with regular expressions to divide out the different ways you can say where the product part is. So there's a bit of processing that happens afterwards because it's not quite perfect. But if you start with around 8,000 observations, even if you only have to do 5% of that, around 400 manually, that's a lot easier. Lastly, we create dummy variables for the hazards. So we look at danger and see if it mentions aflatoxins or GMOs, for instance. Now we're basically done. We have each observation by year, month, the country it's coming from, the specific products, as well as then teasing out our hazards into these count variables. With the data in this format, we can now study whatever we want. For instance, we can look at the seasonal variation of hazard at the border. Some hazards are constant throughout the year, whereas others like aflatoxin vary a lot between January and December. With your data now in a good format, lots of analysis is possible. Next up in part 2, we'll look at a more complicated procedure of acquiring and processing RAPEX data. Thanks.